have to congratulate Techers. This is awesome that there's a big program dedicated to gaming, and just looking from the Silicon Valley perspective, I'm so happy the startup scene is so active in Finland. I've been there in Silicon Valley 14 years now. Got there 1998 with the 3D internet startup that went belly up when the bubble burst, so that's why I don't have hair anymore. And then I worked with Solid. That was a telecommunications software company that actually helped get those guys first to Asian markets, and then did partners, and eventually that was sold to one of the partners, that was IBM. And now I'm on the dark side, so helping Finnish startups to get into Silicon Valley. That in the last 2 years we have doubled the amount of Finnish startups in Silicon Valley. There's about 2,000 companies now, and the aim is to double that in the next 2 years, so there should be about 50 companies, and that's why I really like the startups in here. In the beginning, I think Kope said that they're going to be telling everything about what's happening in Silicon Valley regarding to VC funding. Little disclaimer, this is not the truth and nothing but the truth. This is something that what's happening right now there. I did talk to a whole bunch of VCs and got a little bit their insights. So who knows what's Sand Hill Road? Okay, if you don't know, this is what it is. Last year, Sand Hill Road, that whole bunch of the VCs are from in Silicon Valley, have their offices over there. They dropped $12 billion to VC funding. That's tons of money. So if you're looking for VC funding, this is the this is from 280, Highway 280, coming from south, and that's the Sand Hill Road exit. If you occupy Sand Hill Road, try to get some funding. So this is where you'd be, this is your exit to VC funding. So this is what happened 2011 in VC funding in the US. This is a snapshot. So the 12 billion, a little short of 12 billion, it's from Silicon Valley. There's about 3,500 startups over there, and 430 got funding. The next big region is New York and Boston, and then Los Angeles, and then there's nothing else. So that's pretty much what's happening. So this is now the second quarter, so from April to end of June, what was happening in venture funding in the US. So the Bay Area, which is San Francisco and Silicon Valley, that's 46%, so $3.2 billion was dropped in 1 quarter for VC funding. Then New England, and then New York area, which is actually, by the way, that's booming. But this is kind of funny when you're looking into these, if you go to the previous slide. So looking into the Boston, for example, there's 700 companies, startup companies, and New York, 1,800, and it's pretty much the same amount of money that was dropped, but that's pretty much because in Boston there's still some telcos and big life science companies. But when you start looking into that, 2 areas that really matter is California and New England, and that's about 80% of all funding in last quarter. And then if you look at the Bay Area, software, and that's digital media and all that kind of stuff, that's really dominating. So this is the quarterly in the last about a year, a little bit more than that, 2 years, what's been happening in the Bay Area, so Silicon Valley and San Francisco in venture funding. The first quarter this year was a little bit slow in venture funding, and the reason there is that there's a lot of IPO activity, so companies going public, and then also the VCs were pretty much concentrating on that, but now it's at 3.2 billion. The interesting thing is that there's a lot of happening early stage deals, and it's the highest since early 2001. So that's really good news. And then 410 young companies that the 2.1 billion was pumped into. And like I said earlier, software, digital media, and internet, those are the dominating sectors. And in Silicon Valley, just in Silicon Valley, there's about 375, a little short of 400 VC companies over there. And then you have to account on top of that, there's angels, super angels, and so on and so forth. So when you start going this through over there, it's a hell of a job. And this is the second quarter 2012. Up rounds exceeded down rounds. Up rounds means that the valuation of the company from the previous round of funding is getting higher in that funding. And this is something that is the best quarter in 2007. Pretty much the whole funding last year and this year is going to be the same. And the same thing with the mergers and acquisitions. IPO market has been up now, but the number of IPOs were down, but the dollar value was up because of Facebook. And we all know what's been happening in the IPOs. You know, if you look at coupons and Facebooks and whatnots. So when they open up, they pretty much have half now the price of the stock, what it used to be. But this is pretty much happening in all social at the moment. Venture fundraising, meaning the VC companies try to get building new funds. That has been arising a little bit, and it's very concentrated. Out of 38 of the companies last quarter that were raising funds, 5 accounted about 80%, and all of those are in Silicon Valley. All this is now back to the pre-financial industry meltdown. So 2007, when you look at the venture investments, the mergers and acquisitions and IPOs, but the fundraising is significantly below these levels. There's a lot of concentration there now. Capital is moving to the managers with the best results, and early stage companies going global sooner. So they rather going after the bigger guys who are leveraging all over the world. So this leaves companies with fewer alternatives. The good thing is that the growth of super angels and micro VCs who are putting like funds that are 50 to 100 million and smaller funds. So that may offset the trend. So the good thing is that there's still stress for the emphasis on the early stage funding. Interesting thing is all these kind of accelerator and incubator models continues to be there, and there's Swiss, Danish, Israeli, German, and all that kind of stuff that's happening. And the most active venture capitalists in second quarter 2012 were 500 startups and first round capital who are both seed investors. So Silicon Valley VCs and gaming. So I talked to a handful of different type of VCs and from different perspectives. And this is pretty much what they had to say. And you guys know this. So demonstrate sustainable traction. And how do you monetize that? So 50,000, 100,000, whatever free downloads is not anything that excites investors. And it's tough for Silicon Valley VCs to invest in early stage Finnish companies unless they've proven famous entrepreneurs or massive traction like Rovio have. And for them, a lot of these guys, games is really hard for them to invest in because of the value propositions. How do you really measure that? And often the game success is dependent on market tastes and subjective preferences. And usually the value prop is there when the game is already successful. What's happening also is move from social. Big guys got big, and it's hard to get attention, so it's done. Zynga, downhill, all that kind of stuff. And now the emphasis is really moving to mobile. All social guys are getting there, but it's getting crowded as well. From the perspective of VCs, looking in their portfolios, what kind of companies do they already have over there? Can you fit into that portfolio? But also that all the gaming companies are looking into that. It's fragmented, it's noisy, and it's hard to sustainably monetize that. And also building the distribution. But I see, and a whole bunch of the other guys that I talk to see that mobile has not been discovered yet. There's still tons of stuff that can be done. It's not that you take a game and put that on a mobile, but how do you really develop a game to be mobile from the get-go? And it's the biggest media experience, gaming. It's bigger than Hollywood, so there are opportunities. Some of the hot areas right now that came up: HTML5 game engines, mid-core games, social gambling, kids edutainment, whole bunch of stuff. Also looking in the deeper stuff like everything from infra, plumbing, all the stuff in the back end, enabling platforms and distribution optimization technologies. Also, I would probably add here is it's a big data. How do you really analyze all of that kind of stuff? And some talks about gamification. That's something. There are some VCs that are moved from game to gamification, really looking, how that's working out. And then mobile specific genres, using everything that's already there in the phone or tablet, which is location, sync, sensing, gravity, you name it, all that kind of stuff. And then good gaming companies come from anywhere. It's the definition of good is able to launch a hit game, make money, and stay profitable consistently. Yeah, duh. But the thing is, figure out how can you be cash flow positive on your own. If you can control your own destiny, then it's a lot easier. You have a lot more flexibility when you start discussing about funding if you need that. But then, I think this came from one guy: don't launch your company under the assumption that you will be able to raise venture capital. I think AJ said here that, build a good game, and I think that's the essence of everything here. And it's interesting enough that, all this does nothing to do with the VC funding. And many of the best companies, they died, instead of the VC funding. There's a lot of angel type of a funding. Kickstarter is pretty good platform. A lot of companies being actually raising money, some kind of crowdfunding, friends and families, and all that kind of stuff. I think the good comment was also from one of these guys that VCs figure out things much later. Entrepreneurs know, so you guys know what's working. One of the VCs said that, develop something that you like, your friends like, so the opportunity is that a lot of other people will like that as well. And Finland has been ahead in mobile. We all know what's happening or happened to Nokia, but still there's a lot of stuff that we know from mobile. Silicon Valley, even though you have iPhone, Androids, and all that kind of stuff happening, but it's still a pretty new game over there, and that's a strength of Finland, what I see when we're looking into the mobile. So the last quarter, these are the deals that happened in Silicon Valley in gaming. So 4 gaming companies, a little short of $20 million. And it's a good source. So every quarter, San Jose American News, and it's americannews.com, puts a quarterly report. And I checked the last one that just came out early August, that there were 260 companies that got funding. And it says the name of the company, where they at, what stage of the funding, how much, who were the people, the companies that funded them, and what kind of a company it is. And it's usually break into biohealth, business services, consumer, hardware, instruments, telecommunication, energy, semicon, and software. And under software, that's where usually all the digital media companies are also. Sometimes they might be in the consumer. So it's a 30-page document. You can download that if you go to Mercury News, check it out. That gives you some idea who's investing. And then a little bit about the funding process typically. Some of the things you need for that. And this is pretty much, if you're talking to VCs or angels or seed or whatever, you're talking with. So the investor deck, meaning your slide deck needs to be in order. So 13:30 rule means 13 slides, 30 minutes. You gotta know it by heart. And a lot of the emphasis is on team. Terms and structure of the deal, how much money you're looking for and what, valuation and for who. Of course, your side valuation is different than the VC side. Don't push it, be good, know what you have. The valuation will come from there. Don't undervalue or overvalue yourself. The key here is finding the right investors. How do you fit in their process and model? So do your homework. Look that company, what would be the suitable company, what they invested in, how they're doing it, and then meet the right investor and partner. Find that out from the network, because cold calling doesn't help. You gotta get a warm introduction to these guys, and that's why we are there for example. But from the network, find somebody who knows somebody, then you get in. And then the process usually goes first intro, first meeting with one of the partners, then 2 or 3 of them, and then the partner meeting. And then this takes weeks in between and the due diligence in there in between. But this is pretty much how the process works. So life to pitch. So this is what happens. So all that kind of stuff, your ideas and plans and team and customer input, validation, technology, and all that kind of stuff, that goes into the blender. And from the blender, you gotta build up certain things. One is a, short building elevator pitch, 15 seconds. That gets you into that something that somebody says, wow, that's awesome, please tell me more. You gotta have a 1 page, it's only 1 page, no 2 pages or 3 pages, executive summary that gets you introduction and get, referrals and all that kind of stuff. Napkin pitch means that you have to be able, without PowerPoints, to explain somebody, this is what we're doing, this is how we're doing it. And then initial investor pitch and meeting, first meeting, second meeting, partner meetings, and all that kind of stuff. But it all starts with the ideas, plans, team, the validation, and the technology deck, whatever you have. And this is just a list. I'm not going to go through all of these things, but the top 10 mistakes people make. A lot of that is positioning focus. It's too long, unclear business model. You don't know what the others are doing. Your go-to-market is weak and all that kind of stuff. So these are very, general things, but this happens too often. And it's not only Finnish companies, but it's also, everybody there. So, Mari kind of mentioned about this, so we're doing boot camps here, so this is a little pitch here. So, September 19 and 18, so we're going through all these kind of stuff. How can you be better in the US markets, how to sell there, how to pitch, and all that kind of stuff. So this is a 2-day stuff happening here at Korjaamo, and those are the links. So from Finno pages and the FinPro web pages, you can find more information about this. So that's my last slide. So I think Allison wanted on, the quote, if you don't know where you're going, any place will do. It's pretty good on this. So know your stuff, believe in yourself, and life will be a lot better. probably have 2 minutes for questions or something, but I will be here around if you want to talk to me, and later I'll be around. Thanks.